And I've helped a couple of people write resumes in the last couple of months on doing them. And so themes that come up when I'm looking at other developers' resumes, kind of like common mistakes or simple, very simple things that you can do in order to get your resume crafted in a way that's much more likely to get you hired. So the first thing that I would say is you need to think about crafting a resume the same way that you would think about marketing, right? Like, so a business marketing, they're trying to show their services, make their service look as good as possible. They want it to be true because if a customer comes in, they see the service, you don't actually deliver on what was advertised, then you're going to have high customer turnover rates. So you want to think about it the same way when you're crafting your resume is play up your strengths. Don't lie to them, but play up your strengths and craft it in such a way that it's going to be appealing to the person who's actually looking at your resume. So I'll give you an example of this. So I knew a guy who it was a tech startup, and he had scaled it to $2,000 a month in a monthly recurring revenue. Now, if you don't know anything about the startup world, and the just sheer number of startups that actually pop up, that's actually not super, super common, right? He solved the hard part, figuring out how to get people to give you money. And he was me and him, we met at this tech conference, and I remember he asked, about some tips and tricks to help crafting his resume. I was like, okay, yeah, let's bust it out. And so I took a look at his resume, and when I was looking at his resume, he I noticed. I was like, so okay, what is it that how do you deliver this, right? That's because to me, I'm like, you bootstrapped a tech startup, right? So that's like CTO experience, that's marketing experience, that full stack development. I mean, he set up the databases, backend APIs, like just the whole nine. He put it on his resume as a web developer, as he was just a web developer. And I about had a stroke. I was like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, why you need to you need to be playing this up, because I mean that's what you really did. You were out there in the field, you were talking to customers, you were getting user feedback. I mean, like, you did like product development from beginning to end. And so we kind of walked through that process and crafted up the resume. But I see that with a lot of developers who will do their resumes. So when I sat down with my brother, when I sat down with some of these other guys that were there, so one of the things that I do is I'll list oftentimes the technologies inside of the actual title for the job. So, like, let's say I did .NET work, right, at the law firm that I work for right now. So I'll literally list it full stack developer, and then I'll list all of the technologies. So I'll go AI developer, C sharp / .NET, SQL server, right? And the reason for that is because I don't. If you've ever applied to a lot of developer jobs before, you'll know that this will happen. Is you'll meet with the recruiter and they'll say, "Hey, we're looking for a Python developer," and then you'll go, "Okay, yeah, I've worked with Python before." They're literally going to search for the keyword Python on your resume. And then if they don't see it come up enough times, they're going to be like, well, do you have any more experience with this? You're going to tell them yes. And then they're going to be like, okay, go back and add that in there. So like going back probably like 5, 10 years ago, where you want the keywords that the client or the company that's hiring for developers is looking for to show up as much as possible. So if it's a Python development job, right, they're going to want to see Python, 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 Python. If it's a C sharp or a .NET developer job, they're going to want to see C sharp, C sharp, C sharp, C sharp. So I try to make that as easy for them as possible. And I've done this for the last 5 years. I'll literally list the technologies right on the side of the actual title of whatever job it is that I worked itself. And I just put it in parentheses right next to what the employer's name was. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you've got to remember that the people who are going to be looking at your resume, there's two sets of people who will be looking at your resume. The first set of people who are going to look at your resume are actual technical people. So if the company is even a little bit competent, they're going to have somebody who's a developer, somebody who's a CTO, right? Somebody who actually speaks the language of a tech person looking at your resume. But that's not the only person who's going to be looking. The other people who will be looking at your resume are people who work in HR, people who work on the business side of things, right? Those people are not as tech savvy, but they're still going to be putting in input for, hey, should we hire this person or should we not hire this person? And that person, so when I see a developer craft a resume, the way that it reads is something like, let's say you created a back-end API, or you fixed a bug right? That was, let's say the server, you guys have a microservice that's set up somewhere, and there's very busy times throughout the year where it looks like that one service just gets hammered with requests. And so sometimes you guys were having bottleneck shutdowns. You help to refactor the API, you spin up some extra services, you scale it up, whatever happens, and right, you fix that. The way that most people, most developers will put that on their resume is they'll be like, oh yeah, I built out a CRUD application or set up an API in Node.js. No, 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 no. That's not the way that you want to word it. That might work for somebody who's technical, right? It could use some more detail. But the way you would want to craft that for them is how did it impact the business, the actual business metrics. So if you're working for a tech company and they serve clients, and let's say that the customers that they're serving, because during those really high peaks of traffic, they're getting hit on their server a lot, and so you did the refactoring to fix that. You're going to want to word that to say something more along the lines of refactored our backend API that reduced like customer bugs or customer tickets with ServiceNow by 50%, right? Or I worked on this feature and it boosted revenue sales by 15% or $10,000 over 6 months. Like, show how it impacts customers, show how it impacts revenue, show how it impacts percentages, show how it impacts customer retention. Like, word it in that, so you're delivering the same information, but word it in that way. And if you don't know what those exact numbers are, you can always ballpark it, right? Like, if you just look up how much the company makes, if you remember from any kind of meetings and they're like, oh yeah, we got this customer feedback and now we have this many more customers. Like, those numbers, number one, that's one of the biggest things that's going to be big on your resume. I once paid a guy, he's a professional resume writer specifically for technical people. I paid him like $500 too. So I'm just giving this to you guys for free. And he was like, make sure you're putting numbers inside of your resume. And he's like, those specific business metrics, so that when somebody from HR reads your resume, that they'll look at it and they'll go, oh yeah, like absolutely, this makes sense. I see why this was important, right? Because if somebody from HR reads your resume and you're like, I made a backend API in Node.js, they have no idea what that means, right? But they do know what more business revenue, they do know what less customer turnover means. So make sure that you're addressing both audiences and knowing that when you're doing your resume. That by itself alone has helped me significantly, because it's normally a talking point when you go in for an interview, and it's much more likely that if somebody from HR, hiring manager, even if it's like the founder or the CEO of a company, right, if they're not very technical, when they're reading it, that's going to stand out against the sea of the other generic resumes that they're getting, and so it's going to help you. The other thing is, for your resume template, you don't need anything that's like crazy fancy. Like, there's nothing wrong with having some good design set up or whatever, but you don't have to go crazy fancy. You don't have to do anything insane. Just a normal, basic, bland resume template is fine. The ATS system. This is one that I hear a lot from people. Is devs, like, they're worried. They're like, well, AI scanning my resume. How do I know I'm going to get past the ATS system? So I'm gonna help you with that. There's a statistic that came out. I believe it was on it was doing the rounds on LinkedIn probably like a year ago. I think they said the average hiring manager, the average recruiter, only spends like 5 seconds taking a look at your resume. So you have like a very short amount of time to be able to like capture their attention and then get them to be like, okay, why should I pay more attention to this individual? Why should I call them back? Why should I focus my time on hiring this person, right? Like, you really got to capture their attention. So again, make sure that you're branding yourself well. So back to that example of the guy that I told you about before, where he did product development. He's the full stack engineer. He's implementing all the code himself. He's setting up the database, like all of these things. Okay, rather than him putting that as web developer, I had him put that as he had CTO experience. He was a technical lead. He listed out all the stuff that he did explicitly, right? That's going to be much more impressive on a resume than web developer, even though we're describing the exact same job task, but now we're playing to his strengths instead of just being very generic about what he did. So for you, if if you worked with SQL, if you worked with MongoDB, if you set up, front end React pages or Angular pages or whatever it was, don't just put that on your resume as a web developer. If you worked on both the front end and the back end of the stack, put it as you worked as a full stack developer. Another thing, so right, like, don't no generic stuff. You want to be as specific as possible. And you want to play yourself up as much as possible. If you were mentoring junior developers, put yourself as were you working as like the lead developer on the team? Then say that you were a technical lead. Say that you were a senior developer, right? don't miss out on those opportunities to put your best foot forward. The other thing is, obviously everybody knows that because of the AI hype train, everybody's like, oh, AI developer, AI developer, AI developer. I've seen such an increase in AI developer jobs just in recruiters that have like hit me up on LinkedIn and job postings that I've seen. And so it's because everybody's riding the AI bandwagon right now. Now if you see a job posting for like an AI scientist, I haven't actually hey, love from Istanbul. Oh, thanks guys. Gideon is crazy. Gideon, no, I love Gideon, but I'm not Gideon. How are you, bro? Doing great. Appreciate you, man. 6'7". Oh yeah, bro. Got you. 6'7". So yes. So the AI developer, it's the thing with AI developers is hold on, let me grab this ticket, pull into the parking lot. All right, there we go. The thing is, when you see AI developer, unless it's unless it's like for an AI scientist or somebody who's training an LLM, it can sound right big and scary if all you've done is Claude and you do front end work, or even if you do full stack development, right? Sometimes that can sound scary, like ooh, AI developer, like what is that? I don't know how to train LLMs. I don't know how to do all that. All it really is like 5 years ago they would have just called it a front end developer or a back end developer or a full stack developer. What they're really looking for, it's just a marketing thing. What they're really looking for is a full stack developer who knows how to use Claude or who knows how to use Chat GPT and knows how to use their APIs. Like that's literally all that they're looking for. So you should be thinking it's just a marketing thing. You should be thinking in your mind, okay, I don't have to be an AI scientist to market myself as an AI developer. I just need to be familiar with how LLMs work. I need to be familiar with how to use the APIs that connect to LLMs, right? So OpenAI has their own API that you can connect to. Anthropic has their own API that you can connect to. There's a bunch of generative AI APIs that you're able to connect to so that like Midjourney, so you can generate images, ChatGPT, you can generate images. Again, or even just using the LLMs, agent SDKs, right? You can use LangChain. Anthropic has their own agentic SDK. So make sure that you get basically familiar with these tools, but don't overcomplicate it. Just think about them the way that you would think about any other library that's in your tool set. So if you do JavaScript development, if you do Node.js work, think of it the same way that you would think about Axios, or you would think about React, or you would think about Angular. Like it's not that complicated. You're literally just calling out to APIs and node modules and tools the same way that you always have. But I would say if you do have experience working with those things, to brand yourself or to market yourself as an AI developer, only because that's what's really popular right now, and that's kind of like what the popping meta is. So I have recruiters who will hit me up literally all the time for AI developer jobs, and like I said, I'm not training LLM, I'm not doing any of those things. Literally, all they're looking for is a full stack developer who knows how to use Claude, who knows how to use OpenAI. Like that's it. Other than that, I would say make sure that you invest heavily in optimizing your LinkedIn profile, right? So out of everything that I've done to help me be able to get jobs, optimizing my LinkedIn profile is probably the most important one that has had the highest return on investment. And I'll tell you why. I haven't applied to a job in 6 years, like legitimately. So like when you'll see these videos of software developers and they're looking for internships or they're applying to job after job, they're like, oh, I got ghosted by 500 companies. Like I got out of that like 6 years ago. And the way that I did was by accident, actually. It was, I was just checking the messages, okay? Yeah, it was by accident. So what happened was I had a recruiter reach out to me for a job, and I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. I ended up getting the job. I thought, maybe it was going to be a scam. Aren't recruiters sketchy, like the whole nine, yada, yada, yada. I do it, and it ends up paying out well, right? Like I was like, oh, this actually worked out. It wasn't a scam. Everything worked great. And so after that worked, then another recruiter hit me up for a job after that one ended. So I ended up taking that one, and then the cycle just continued. And I was like, huh, well, this seems way easier than applying to hundreds of jobs, having to get ghosted by companies, having to do all of those things. And so rather than applying to these hundreds of jobs and wasting my time, I was like, why don't I just talk to these recruiters who already have a good relationship built up with the company? And it worked out well. And so now, like literally every single job, and I've worked for OpenAI, I've worked for Disney and Hulu Plus, I've worked for Warner Brothers Discovery. all of them have come through recruiting jobs. Like every last one of those came through a recruiter. And literally, it was either a recruiter reaching out to me or me setting up my LinkedIn profile very well and then reaching out to other recruiters. Like I'm telling you, LinkedIn is a worthwhile investment if you can. And the other thing is you want to make, so what you want to do for your LinkedIn profile is make posts, right? So if you're a developer, at least once a week, I try to make sure I post something that's either like a side project that I'm working on or a screenshot of some of the code that I've been working on, something that's going to be technical and code related, right? That just show like, hey, here's the projects that I'm working on. Here's what I've been building. So that's first and foremost, so that you'll be active on LinkedIn. The algorithm will push you. The other thing is inside of your tagline, sometimes you'll see people, what they'll do is they'll say software engineer at, and then whatever company, right? You don't just want to do that. The way that you want to do it is, again, remember, when LinkedIn, and I've talked to like hundreds of recruiters, when LinkedIn recruiters are looking for software engineers, they don't just go like software engineer in Vegas. No, that's not the way that they do it. The way that recruiters find you on LinkedIn is, if let's say they're trying to find a developer for Disney, if Disney comes to them and they say, hey, we need somebody who knows how to use React.js, Node.js, Svelte, right, SQL, what they're going to do is you can do what's called a Boolean search on LinkedIn. And so they're literally going to put those keywords into their search and then search for a software developer. So the recruiter will literally type in SQL, and then they'll put like I think it's like the OR symbol or the OR operator, and then they'll type in React.js. So they're specifically looking for the keywords that the client gave to them for the developer. Now, they might not know what any of those technologies mean, but I guarantee you they're looking for those keywords. And so if you just put inside of your tagline on LinkedIn that you're a software engineer, they're not going to find you. What you need to do is put in those keywords. So if your best technology is with React.js, if your best technology is with SQL, like whatever it is you've got that experience with for the job you're looking for, put it in your tagline. That's literally the way that I set up my LinkedIn profile. And so when recruiters are searching for React.js, when they're searching for AngularJS, they'll see that inside of my tagline and they're like, oh, this guy has it right in his tagline. I'm one of the first people who comes up. So I get a ton of jobs and recruiters reaching out on LinkedIn. Opinion on C. Oh, bro, C is goated. C is absolutely awesome. You should learn C if for no other reason than for learning C. Like it's literally that good and it's that phenomenal. I actually have I'm doing a couple of different projects right now. I'm working on some embedded systems programs, and then I'm also building out. It's like an HTTP client from scratch using libcurl, and then I'm also going to start learning libv. I think it's libuv, which is like the underlying library that's built in C that allows you to make like the socket connections and do inbound receive information right from your responses when you make a request, and then do outbound requests. But libuv is what pretty much drives the async input-output architecture that's like non-blocking for Node.js. It's the underlying implementation. If you use libcurl, it's I think it does block the input-output. That's why Node.js ended up using libuv. But yes, C, you should absolutely learn C. Since it's a lower level language, what it's going to do is it's going to force you to learn from first principles, right? So you're gonna have to understand memory management. You're gonna have to understand data types, structs, like all of these things. It's gonna make you a much, much better programmer. So I highly recommend it. Gideon, opinion on C. So appreciate the question, bro. Let me see if I can show you. I'll pull something up real quick. I'm gonna literally show you what my LinkedIn profile looks like. Connect to my iPhone. Try and do this from the hotspot, if it'll let me. I'm gonna literally show you what my LinkedIn profile looks like. Hold on, we can pull this up. Gonna see. The Gideon thing is hilarious. You're taking me out with that. All right. So let me show. All right. So this is. So look. So this is what my LinkedIn looks like, right? So if you look here, right, you'll notice that it says senior AI engineer / fractional CTO with over a decade of experience, and then I say OpenAI, Hulu Plus, Disney, Yum, Warner Brothers Discovery, AI Agent, right? And so these are all companies that I've actually worked for, right? I'm not lying in any of those, right? I have all the companies that I've worked for listed down here, but right here, this right here. So notice, right? Sorry, not there. There we go. Where's it? Oh, there we go. AI agents, LangChain, TypeScript, Node.js, React, Angular, C#, slash .NET, Rust, Golang, Python, SQL. So this right here is what I'm talking about. You need to list out the technologies that you yourself are proficient in your bio, so that when recruiters try to hit you up, right, they're going to be looking, they're going to hit you up for roles with C# and .NET. They're going to hit you up for Golang roles. They're going to hit you up for TypeScript and Node.js roles, right? This is why you want to put your technologies inside of your resume in this way. I mean, in your tagline on LinkedIn in this way, because this is how the recruiters are going to find you. And then this right here is what I was telling you about earlier, right? So senior AI engineer, right? Listen, when it says senior AI engineer, I'm telling you, I can show you right now all of the recruiters, right? Who this one's for real estate, but right? Senior UI UX designer, data engineering opportunity, W2.net. Here we go, AI engineer, right? Okay, so this one right here, for instance, this is a good one. This is, my name is Technical Recruiter. I'm reaching out to you for an exciting job opportunity for a senior AI engineer, Gen AI and Azure, .NET, full stack integration, remote full time. Okay, this is what I mean by the AI engineer thing is just marketing. So they say senior AI engineer, Gen AI and Azure / .NET full time, full stack integration, right? A lot of developers would see this and they would think, oh, like you got to be you got to have like a master's degree in AI. You got to know how to train LLMs from scratch. Like that's not the case at all. And one of the dead giveaways is this Gen AI and Azure and then .NET full stack integration. They're literally looking for a C# / .NET developer who knows how to use Claude and OpenAI. Like I would be willing to bet you significant sums of money that that's what they're looking for right here. Like that's it. And so if you don't know that, you can be dissuaded from applying to AI jobs like this, or you might think, oh, well, maybe I'm not qualified, maybe they're looking for something else, right? Or you won't even brand yourself as that. So if you have any experience doing OpenAI, working with Claude's API, working with agent SDKs, like I'm telling you, bro, brand yourself as an AI engineer, and you'll have many, many, many more job opportunities that are going to come your way. Because right, sometimes the recruiters don't even know the difference, right? But it's really not as scary as it sounds. But just doing those optimizations, like, bro, I can show you just from May, like I've had a ton of recruiters that'll reach out for jobs, and it's not because there's anything special about me. Like again, I don't have a degree. I don't pay for any marketing services or anything like that. I literally just optimize my LinkedIn profile, right? I try to be active on LinkedIn. I've got my tag. I got a pretty good profile picture. I got my tagline all filled out with what my actual experience is, and then I try to be active on here, right? So like I'll make videos, blog articles. I post on my I have a newsletter that's in here, and then I just make posts, right? Like even small stuff I do. I was playing around with Claude Design the other day, posted it. Talked about a work challenge that I had, posted it. Code snippets, right, for something else that I was working on at work, right? Posted it, right? Just make sure that you're being active on LinkedIn and posting in this way, and you're much more. It's much more likely that your profile is going to come up, right? Because the algorithm's going to pick you up. It's going to boost you. You'll be one of the first people to come up. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it. This thanks, Fritz. Yep, thanks. Opinion on, like I said, yeah, C is absolutely goated, 100%. But yeah, that's all that really goes into it, guys. Just optimizing your LinkedIn profile. Make sure that you're wording your resume in such a way that you're going to make it appealing to people who are trying to hire for those particular kind of jobs. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, I'm getting ready to go into the office, so go ahead and get my day started. Get to work. I will see you guys later.